I just want to thank everyone that's came out today. There's a lot of people that wasn't expecting to show up, but glad to see everybody here. And it's Culture and Senior Seminar, so it just makes sense that I can pray. So if you guys want to join me real quick in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for this day. I thank you for the ability to wake up this morning and have another day to chase your glory. I thank you for this chance to share my peace of mind over a topic that I've struggled with for quite some time now. And I just pray that you use me, you speak through me today to this crowd, and you communicate to them whatever it is that they need to hear. And in your name we pray, amen. So, today, this is going to be our topic, obviously. So this is the Latin meaning, effectus relations. So it's the effect of relationships or connections. This is a topic, I'm just going to give you a background. Growing up, obviously, I was homeschooled. And I mean, my parents, I pretty much had enough kids to make it own grade. I mean, tons of siblings. So it was a great home life. But I've always struggled with this topic, like I said, as a child. I've always asked myself, like, what is this connection that I share to this other person? What does it mean? And I struggled a lot to understand. I was, obviously, as when you're younger, you're selfish. So I was more of thinking, what can this person give to me rather than how do we affect each other? And obviously, as I grew, as I got older, I matured, frontal lobe finally developed, and I finally realized relationships go both ways, not one thing. It has to be both people putting effort, whether it's platonic, familial, friendship, acquaintance, or romantic. So today we're going to go over all of those. Basically, we'll go over the goods, the bads. We'll have some questions, obviously, like you said, at the end, and then I'm going to throw in a few things that I've always just, had questions about. So, like I said, first opening question that I've always struggled with, what is a relationship? So today, we have everybody, obviously, each individual has their own take and standpoint on every topic. So you're going to have the expectation. This is what people mistake relationships to be, and then you have the reality. So, a lot of people see expectations. They're going to think that a relationship is a simple equation, such as love is equal to happiness, or love is equal to fulfillment. If I finally get that person that I've been chasing for so long, or if I finally get into that friend group that I've been longing to be in for so long, I'm going to finally, all my answers will be, all my questions will be answered. Sorry, I got to start this timer. Forgot to start books, whatever. All those things, basically, it's just going to make you feel like a full person, and it's going to give you all the answers to everything. But in reality, it's not really what it is. And here's another, this is what I came up with, it's kind of in my own words. People kind of see relationships as a cure-all serum. That's not the reality, guys. The reality is relationships that are complicated. They have ups and downs. I tried my best to underline, bulleted, highlighted that word. It's both. It's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows. There's going to be hard patches. That's the best part about it. Because it demands both effort from both people. Wow, this I stuttered. But like I said, it takes both people putting in effort towards this. And then, like I said, I ended it with one of my own, basically in my own words, it's an unpredictable sea. It could be calm, it could bring ease to your mind, but sometimes it's going to be rough. There's going to be some storms you got to get through, but that's the best part about it. So just to start off, we're going to get over the bad stuff first. We're going to go to bad and we'll get to the good. And I guess I'm going to throw out some other stuff for y'all. So what is a toxic relationship? So this is basically my picture of a toxic relationship. It's gonna be a rotten apple that in time will ruin the bunch. So guys, I want you to think right now, you're in an orchard and you have a basket. This basket is gonna be your life. It's gonna be how you are as a person right now. And this is, I want you to think while you're in that orchard, obviously a whole bunch of fruits that you could pick from. I want you to think every single one of these apples that you put into your basket are gonna be something that affects your life, like how you are today. So take for example, your hobbies, the sports you play, the people you place yourself around. Those are each going to be an apple that you place into that basket. But if you make a mistake of placing a rotten apple into that basket, over time, the rest of it will get affected. And eventually, your whole life is going to change. So oftentimes, it sucks. It's a horrible reality. But oftentimes, individuals in toxic situations, they come to realization too late. So here's a few things. So we have emotional attachment, fear of being alone, and the tendency to prioritize the relationship over their own well-being. Those are just a few factors that cause people to trap themselves within a toxic environment. And what's even crazier is there's been actual studies, tons of studies. Most notably, there's a psychologist at the Therapeutic Center in New York City. They have found that toxic relationships can alter your brain chemistry. It can change you as a person if you're stuck in a toxic relationship too long. It'll change the way you act, the way you reason, the way you see yourself even. It's just a whole world that you do not want to be stuck in. So now that we're done with that, we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna flip it to a healthy relationship. Now that we have like a basic understanding of what a relationship is, we went over the bad, now we're just gonna get into the good. So in contrast, a healthy relationship can be described as a bottomless well. A well that's water, which is the love for one another, knows no end. Things that maintain a healthy connection include respect, and so it's gonna be bullet points, but I have everything written down in my notebook, so I'm just gonna read some of the stuff off to y'all, so you guys will bear with me. It's quite a bit, but it's meaningful. So respect. Mutual respect is a fundamental, vital ingredient in relationships. It involves honoring and treating others' opinions, feelings, and needs with dignity. Respecting differences and valuing each other's unique perspectives cultivates understanding and makes room for love to blossom. So there's no order, but all the bullet points that come up, you guys can put them in order however you think best fit. I kind of just put them on the board. And so second, we have trust. Trust is the foundation of all relationships. It means having faith in someone's consistency and honesty. Trust fosters a sense of security. It also fosters a sense of safety in all relationships. Without trust, relationships can crumble, they can suffer, and they can cause uncertainty and doubt. And then communication is my third bullet point. Communication, regular check-ins and honest conversations are vital to sustaining successful relationships. Effective communication requires both speaking and listening. It cannot be one-sided. Like I said, you have to be able to listen as well as give your opinion to the other person. It is essential to share your feelings openly and respectfully. By listening attentively, you can pick up verbal and nonverbal cues. Over time, the more you get to know that person, you'll be able to understand by their tone even, okay, maybe something's going on, maybe something's not right. And then next we have boundaries. So boundaries, setting and respecting boundaries is critical for building or improving the health of all types of relationships. Boundaries are self-imposed to help clarify what is and is not acceptable, ensuring everyone feels safe and respected. Boundaries can be physical, they can be emotional, they can be mental, or even digital. These markers can include personal space, emotional limits, and expectations for behavior. And then lastly, I have self-care. So self-care ensures you have the emotional and physical energy for yourself and others. Balancing caregiving with self-care improves the overall quality of your life and the health of your relationships. Self-care is specific to the individual and may involve going for a run, eating a favorite meal, or even getting a haircut. So it's super simple, but you gotta make sure you gotta love yourself before you can love others. Otherwise, that relationship is gonna crumble. This is my most memorable analogy. This is, like I said, it's one of those slides I kind of just threw in there because give y'all a little break now that we've done all the hard stuff. So this is a quote that I heard. It goes, "A ship cannot sail into the horizons with its anchor still stuck between the rocks." This was heard by this guy named Christian. Super cool dude, super intelligent, super sharp. And basically, that quote goes, "You, the boat, cannot reach the places you were meant to see, the horizons, when weighed down by people who shouldn't be there." The rocks. So toxic relationships, they can be described as the rocks, or even the rocks can be a mental block in your own mind from something that you might have trauma from. But this begs the question, how do I know if my relationship is toxic or healthy, but just at a rough patch, has a hard time? So I'm gonna explain to you guys what that means. So a toxic relationship is gonna involve emotional harm. These relationships often involve manipulation, control, or abuse, leading to emotional or psychological harm. And in contrast, a good relationship that hits a hard patch, it has challenge and growth. Relationships can be challenging, but often lead to growth and deeper understanding between the partners. And then also right here, toxic, it consists of a lot of negativity. Toxic relationships are characterized by constant negativity, criticism, and a lack of support. While in contrast, hard relationships, there's gonna be conflict, but there's gonna be resolution. It has relationships, there's gonna be conflicts that arise, there's no question, like it's gonna happen. Relationships aren't gonna be perfect all the time. We're sinful. We fall short of the glory of God, but we're here by His grace. And there is room to grow. There's room to come back from those things. You just gotta have faith in each other, and you gotta trust that each other are gonna get over it. And then back to toxic, so there's gonna be a lack of respect. So there's often a fundamental lack of respect for each other's boundaries, feelings, and needs. And then in a healthy relationship, there's gonna be mutual respect. So mutual respect, even when things are hard and tough, there's generally a foundation of mutual respect and care for each other. And then my last couple of points, there's draining energy and temporary struggles. So like I said, toxic relationships, it's gonna dwindle down on your mental and your physical being, and it's just overall, it's gonna change you as a person if you let it continue to hurt you the way it is. But then in a hard relationship or a healthy, hard patch, there's only temporary struggles. Hard relationships may go through rough patches, but they can improve with effort and commitment. And then finally, we're going to be going into the biblical integration for relationships. God's intention, his plan for relationships, what he wants or what he sees. In the Bible, it never explicitly lists out like the commands. It doesn't give us like lists, like this is what a relationship is, this is this and this. But it gives us plenty of standards and examples of relationships and what they should look like or function. Basically, this is one of my favorite verses. Romans 15:5, for example, most accurately depicts what God's ultimate design for marriage, which is his intention for a relationship, is. Marriage is the unity between a husband and wife. It's when two flesh come together, they join up and become one. It's the only one, God is the only one who can give us the patience and encouragement that enables us to live complete harmony with another soul. So that means, basically, I'm just going to explain it for y'all. Relationships, they cannot function, they cannot exist unless ordained by God. You have to have a relationship with God, with your Creator, before you can have a relationship with another person. Otherwise, it's not going to work. You cannot love somebody, but not love the one who created you. And also, just going to add real quick, so there's a lot of emotions, obviously, that go into relationships, a lot of things that go towards it. So you got, like I said, the respect, all those other things. But the quintessential aspect of a relationship, whether it be friendship, platonic, familial, even romance, is love. Without love, there cannot be a relationship. Like, I would honestly consider a connection between someone, if it didn't have love, it's not a relationship. It's kind of just, you know that person, you know of them, you don't know them. Yeah, that's it. That's all my presentation.
Christian, like I said, teachers, parents, y'all got any feedback or questions for Christian? If not, I got stuff. I already got stuff. So.
Why don't you start us off, and then maybe they'll throw some confidence.
Tell me what to do. Okay, cool. All right, so I like the topic, and I like that you kind of kept it really easy. Kind of kept it really broad in terms of just relationships in general, which I think helped you because so many different types of relationships, right? And you mentioned, I like the list that you gave of the different aspects of the relationship. I think that's what you called it. All of the stuff about respect, and I like the boundaries thing. Anyways, so your opinion, it's kind of a twofold question. One, it's really just two questions. One, in terms of just the audience that you're looking at right now, what would you say is the most important relationship? And with the caveat that your Bible teacher's probably asking about your relationship with God, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm talking about like interpersonal, like human to human relationship. What do you find is the most, or maybe you can talk some about your research about what you found was the most significant, most important relationship for people?
So I'll definitely put your significant other, that romance relationship, probably at that top one spot, because it was God's intention. He basically, you just think beginning of the Bible, Adam was alone. He needed somebody to live with, so God gave him Eve. And that's like one of the biggest examples of a relationship. So I would personally say that it goes, that significant other relationship that you share with that other person that you're gonna marry, that you're gonna live the rest of your life with, that number one. Okay. And then, I mean, I could give you the rest in order if you want, but I would just say.
So here was the second part of that question. How much do other relationships have? So like, it's interesting you said that one. I mean, it's a valid point. But also in the sense of like, y'all are kind of on the threshold of your relationship with your parents is really important, right? A lot of the quality of your life is determined by whether or not your relationship with your parents is good.
Yeah.
How much do those relationships impact one another? Does the question make sense? So your relationship with your parents versus your relationship with your significant other, as you said, do those relationships interact with one another, and if so, how?
I mean, trying to understand this question. I would say the relationships that you like form with obviously your parents, that's gonna be like the first relationship that you have, regardless. Even if you do have siblings or if you're an only child, the relationship with your parents that you share with them, that's gonna be ultimately what's gonna make you a greater person. It's like basically it's gonna mold you.
Right.
And then the friends aspect, how that ties in, it just depends on the people that you place yourself with. If you hang out with the wrong people, obviously that's gonna influence you in the wrong way. So you do wanna like have good parents that'll give you like the insight to, you know, like, don't hang out with these people. You wanna hang out with people that are gonna make you a better person.
Right.
I'm just trying to understand, tie into each other. Overall, I mean, yeah, relationships is probably the biggest influence to becoming the person that you are. Like even today, like if I didn't have my mom or my dad, I'm kind of scared for the person I would be. Like I think about this all the time. I don't know what I would be doing right now, where I would be at in life without my parents. I love both of them over there, by the way, if anybody doesn't see them. But yeah, I would just say that is ultimately what is going to change you into the person you are.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes.
So what is something that your parents have modeled that you want to model in your marriage?
My dad's respect for my mother has been one of the biggest like standards, I guess you could say, that I've looked up to. The way he treats her, the way that they do have some rough times, but they get over it. And I mean, they've had so many kids that all of us have turned out to be great people. And I look up to my dad and the fact that I want to be like him when I'm older. I want to have a woman in my life, and I want to be able to treat her like my dad treats my mother. Yeah.
Anybody else? Teachers? Family? Yes, sir.
So in your research,
Yep.
so you talked about early on how you felt growing up when you were young, we're trying to figure it out. It was a one-way street, right, for you. Like, what can I get from this person? Now you're starting to look at it from a two-way street. What else can I provide? So moving forward, as you head out to college, workforce, whatever you decide to do, what are some things that you think about when you meet new people, or what are some attributes, things you look for, like, hey, this is somebody I might be able to have a relationship, whether it's a friendship, anything like that?
That's a great question. So, so for starters, I always, after I meet someone, before I take it to a more deeper meaning, like, obviously you're gonna start as an acquaintance, or you might meet them at work, but then you'll grow closer, become friends, and then eventually it might even grow into something more. You become, like, I look at Reese, I see that guy, I see him as a brother. I don't see him as just a friend, but I see him as family. Because one, I know him, he knows me, we've known each other for a while, and our families obviously know each other. But I would say what I look for personally, does this person have the same goals as me? Do they have the same standards? They're not just gonna like throw their life away if it comes down to like some party or something. Are they gonna help me grow closer to God? And then do they have like just great plans moving forward? Are they gonna help me become a greater person overall? That's what I would say. Yeah, anyone else? Students, maybe?
Yeah, classmates, let's open up for y'all. Y'all got anything for Christian?
Okay, let's do this.
Alright,
Jeremiah.
Alright, so Pete, so like, if you would say you in a toxic relationship,
Yeah.
kinda like, how would you get out of that? Like, how would you say like you get out of that without
I knew this question was coming.
without like hurting another person, basically?
Wait, are you saying you're the toxic one?
No.
But
No, I'm just saying, like, you feel me, like, if the other person, like, you feel like your relationship as a whole is, like, you would say toxic,
yeah.
and you know it is, but you don't want to hurt the other person by breaking it off, how is, like, the nice way you would do that?
I mean, one, don't do that over the phone. that's something obviously you're gonna want to have like an actual sit down conversation with. And like I said, there's a difference between a toxic relationship and then a healthy relationship that's in a rough patch. So you have to have like a meaningful conversation and a sit down time with that person and figure out like, hey, I don't really like this stuff that you're doing. I don't like what's going on here. And if they decide they're not going to change that and it just continues to get worse, that's how you know it becomes a toxic relationship. And it's a horrible reality, but bro, it's honestly like ripping off a scab on a wound that hasn't healed yet. You just got to get rid of it, and that way you can actually heal. It's gonna have a scar. It's gonna leave scars on you, but in time it will heal, and I mean you'll be free from that. So, yeah.
Appreciate that, Phil.
So. Anyone else?
Anything else? Cole, you got something?
Cool.
In terms of relationships, how would you argue relationships with things that aren't like actual people rather than like a group, like church, for example?
Oh, so like a friend group or something?
Or no, more like a church relationship, or like how do you do that?
Are you saying like with a single person from church, or like the
no,
church
like,
body?
I mean like in relations, like the church body itself, like how was that like relationship? How can that relationship be like toxic, I guess, or problems? Because church is a group of people, so people are obviously full with sin, and
Yeah.
so could you not say that you can see the same things in like a singular person, but rather than like a body of like church?
Are you asking how to stay away from that, or like how to realize that?
I'm more just saying like, how do you feel about like? Would you say that like in terms of relationships, the church is like a body, like a group of people, and then group of people can be toxic themselves, and that church can be toxic. So, like, what would you think that churches can be toxic? Or
I do believe, yes, I do believe. Sorry, it took me a second.
No,
to
you're
understand what
fine.
you're saying. I do believe, yes, churches can be inherently evil. They can be sinful because, like I said, we all fall short of the glory of God. That's why some churches fail. Like you'll see these huge bodies, these massive mega churches that will be going great, and then just something happens like, oh, pastor, secretary, all those stories, and then it just fails. So I would say if you do realize that the church is toxic, that it's like falling apart, I would just say that's something you got to pray about, and then God is going to place you in the right place. Like even if it is going to a different church, even if it's like a smaller church, if you're just going to a mega church or a smaller church, that's where I'm at personally. My family, we've been going to the smaller church now because my parents didn't like the bigger church that we were at because it had, like you said, it did have toxic atmosphere. So I would say they can be toxic, and just the best way to deal with that, like I said, you just got to pray about it, and then God will take care of it from there.
Sounds like pretty much the same advice as like with an individual. Like, it's gonna hurt, there's gonna be some backlash, but it's what's best. Anything else?
Will.
I'm interested in your viewpoint on a relationship that does not have a basis of God. Can that happen, or is that impossible if you're not a Christian?
So like I was saying at the end of my presentation, the biblical integration, a relationship, it can't exist the way it's supposed to without God. Like you can't have a connection with that person that it's intended to be without that foundation being Christ. I'm sure, yeah, you'll have fun with that person. It's gonna be a great time for that first probably 6 months, maybe even a year if you stick it out that long. But after a while, it's kind of just be like, it just feels empty. It kind of feels like pointless, and then it's just gonna fall apart. So.
Right. So what do you say about all the relationships that have worked without the basis of Christ in our society?
I mean, I would say, yes, they do work. No, sorry, no, you. I would say they do work. It's just the sense of that relationship. There's no fulfillment in it. Like, yes, you're living with somebody, but you're not under the covenant of God, and you're not living for a purpose, for God's purpose, and it kind of just makes, I don't know, it just makes that relationship that shouldn't be, in my opinion, shouldn't have worked. But obviously, like you said, it does work, and I mean, yeah. Cool. No, you're good.
To build onto that, maybe as well as lots of relationships, are you Christ? Would you agree that Christ influences, even though Christ, it's been a very long time since he died on the cross for us, but could you also say that Christ influences so much in today's aspect that even other religions and stuff, they have some form of basis maybe? I would say like a lot of like Islam and stuff, even though they don't see like Jesus as God or something, they do see him as a prophet and they have like high respect for him, and it's not like completely like negative towards Jesus himself. So would you also say that like Christ has influenced all these other relationships some way or another?
I would say, yeah, that relationships do happen because Christ or God is the one, he's the one that places that person in your life. It's just some people don't realize that, and they kind of just think, like, they met that person just out of sheer love, almost. So that's kind of my take on that. But, like I said, relationships that don't have that fundamental or that base of Christ is kind of just, I don't know, you're gonna enjoy each other, but what's the purpose? Like, you're just both gonna just die, and that's it. Like, what's the point of having each other if you're not gonna push each other to be greater people and to grow closer to the Creator and just spread His word?
Well, what about like atheist relationships where they don't really believe in any sense of a God? For some cases, not all, but with those cases, some of them do just intend to be together forever until death, because some people don't see an afterlife. So, like some of the people who live very, like I would say, like meaningful to them. Like, do you think it's still meaningful for them, or have they not fully fulfilled their needs?
I would say, yeah, so I didn't mean to cut you off. But yeah, I would say relationships, they do create a sense of fulfillment. Like I said, when you live with another person, or even take, for example, like when Adam was alone, you needed Eve, and you're gonna find that person to give you basically that sense of safety and security, and they're gonna give you like basically a meaning in life to a sense. So yeah, from an atheist standpoint, I guess yes, relationships for them are really just a sense of, I need somebody that I can connect with so I don't feel lonely or left out or disconnected.
It's maybe to fill that sense
So-
of loneliness.
So if I can interrupt real quick,
Yep.
like, I wanna be careful not to be a little too friendly towards the idea of having relationships outside of Jesus. The reason I say that is because, I think if we were talking about this in class the other day, it feels like that kid that comes up to me and says that he got an A on my test, bragging about how he got an A on my test and he didn't study for it. Like, brother, that's not the flex you think it is, because imagine how well you would have done if you hadn't studied. So the fact that we see good relationships happening outside of any personal relationship with God, that shouldn't surprise us. They're image bearers just like we. And I'll throw the other side of the coin in there. It shouldn't surprise us that we see Christian relationships falling into shambles, because they're sinners just like all of us are. So and I think if I can put my finger on like the one commonality between Will's question and Cole's question and your comments there is, I want to be careful to encourage all of us not to define and measure relationships in terms of how much personal fulfillment we get out of it. The point of a relationship, because we kind of accidentally went back to where you mentioned you were when you were a kid, right? You kind of accidentally flip it back over and say, so this really is just all about me. And the fact that you have two people getting a lot of self-fulfillment out of relationships for a certain number of years, it doesn't necessarily mean that's everything that relationship should have been, right? Because there's a bigger picture than just the fact that the two people are happy. Man, I have lots of friends my age, which is, just incredibly young, and they've already, they've already had multiple divorces, multiple families, multiple kids with multiple spouses, and their life is just exponentially more complicated because of that. Not to say that God can't get glory or that they can't become happy, good, flourishing people. They are good people, just made some really tricky decisions in life, right? All that to say, so many times I've seen those relationships go the direction that they do because why? Well, I'm just not happy anymore. One of the biggest things I've been trying to teach y'all all year is that every part of our culture is only as healthy as we are unselfish. It's only as healthy as we are others focused instead of self-focused. And I think this is just another really good topic where it's only going to be as healthy as you are focused on someone else. C.S. Lewis, sorry, I got to throw in C.S. Lewis here. C.S. Lewis said that friends are two people, every good friendship starts with, you too? Every good friendship starts with, I thought I was the only one. So you and Reese over football, video games, school, whatever, right? It probably started as, oh yeah, you're on the team, you're doing this too. You too? Cool. Let's walk along this path together, right? My admonition would be, I would argue that relationship is only going to be as deep as the thing that both of y'all are walking together towards. However deep that thing is. Now, no doubt, like, y'all aren't playing football in high school anymore, so if that relationship is going to continue, what's gonna need to happen? You need to have something deeper, you're gonna need to have something bigger, right? If you expect any type of relationship to just go the distance and be everything that God means for it to be, then it's almost like y'all need to be walking towards something that won't go away. Walk towards something that won't fail or won't fall apart. And really, in my experience, the only thing that fills that position well is your relationship with God. Thank you for indulging me. Last call, anybody? Yes, sir.
I just, like what Will said, when it comes to, I've seen relationships be successful, marriages be successful for years and years without God. Okay, but I know from personal experience with almost 28 years with my wife, how difficult a marriage is with God. Living with a person that's not perfect. I would say I'm less perfect than she is. Just knowing that, what is the glue? What in the world are they trying to, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, because I know how difficult it is as a believer that knows who God is, that, I've needed His help many times. I have lots of prayers, lots of, and yeah, we got a lot of kids. There's some glue there, of course, a lot of glue, I could say. But the reality is, like, it blows me away to see these, couples that are together for 50 years and God's not a part of it. But like you said, we're still image bearers. We still have, is it fulfillment from each other? I don't know. Like that's honestly something for years to see that. To say it's successful, but like you said, how much better could it be if God was in that? How much deeper? That's really good stuff. I enjoyed it. Nice job. Proud of you, as usual.
I think that's good. Oh.
Wait, I have like an unserious question. Okay, wait, so yeah, it's like not serious, like coming away from all the Bible stuff. But sorry, it was good, but okay.
When is your presentation?
Alright, right. No, I was just wondering, if when you're looking into all this, if there was like a sweet spot kind of thing of like how long you should date someone and then like how long it should take to propose and like what that should look like, because I know that's like a big thing, because some people would date for like a month and then like get married, and then other people would date for like 5 years. Yeah. I was just wondering if you looked into that, because I thought it'd be cool.
I didn't look into it, but I mean, I have like a personal opinion.
Okay.
In my opinion, I think if you find the right person, you're gonna have a feeling that like, okay, I know this is the person I want to spend the rest of my life with. And what I like to bring up a lot when I talk about this stuff with my parents even, and I mean Lily too, obviously. When people first start like dating, when they first start meeting each other, there's this thing I like to call a love fever. It's kind of basically, it changes, like, you find that person way more attractive than any of the other people you see. You think about the person a lot more than others, and it's really only after that love fever fades away that the real love sets in, that the fact that you like that person for them, even after you're done with that I'm chasing this person, like I want that person so bad, like after that fades away, that's when like that, like I was saying, like that real love sets in. And you'll know, like there's gonna be a time you'll know, or even like when John will know, when it's time. Like it's different for every individual. There's no set time for every relationship. It really just depends on where y'all are at and how comfortable you
Like
are
what your
with each
goals
other.
are and
Yes.
stuff, yeah.
That's why I was saying earlier, like you gotta find a person that has the same standards, that has the same morals, and like basically the same viewpoints as you, and it'll make it a lot easier on you. So.
Done.
Oh, we got two.
So,
Kids.
what do you think about like if you're, because I know a lot of people that have married someone that isn't a Christian and like gone into that relationship or marriage being like, oh, they'll just come to church with me, or I'm just gonna make them a Christian. Do you think that that is like a smart way to go into a relationship? If you're a Christian and the person you love, like you love everything about them, you're in a healthy relationship with them, but all it's missing is that Christ aspect. Do you think that that's smart to continue that relationship and try to grow it with that person? Or
Yeah.
what?
Well, I want you to look at it this way. What if God put that person in your life to give them that last aspect that they need, that Christ following? Maybe it's your goal. Maybe it's your calling to bring that person closer to God. I mean, obviously there is a risk getting into a relationship with somebody that doesn't have the same beliefs and viewpoints as you, but you could always look at it at the standpoint of maybe I'm the reason that we met, maybe I'm the reason that they should be brought closer to God. That's how I like to say it. 'Cause like I said, God's gonna place people in your life, and it's gonna happen. You gotta pray about it. You gotta like basically spend a lot of time on it. So, what's that?
Could I add something right there?
Yeah, real quick. Yeah.
This wasn't really in the purview of my class, but at some point in time, my hope would be whenever y'all are at that threshold of marriage and whatever, which God helping you isn't anytime soon, I would hope that someone wiser than me would be able to counsel you and show you how much of a covenant relationship marriage actually is. Here's why I'm saying that. I appreciate all the feeling stuff, because you're right, there's a lot of wisdom to the fact that, other people call it the honeymoon phase, right? Where it's like everything's great, everything's going good, and then you gotta figure out whether or not you can actually live life with this person. Now if the intent, like a lot of people, if the intent with marriage is just to live in the moment and hey, if we're not about this, we can just end it whenever we need to. If that's the attitude, then this conversation doesn't even technically apply. But I'm assuming if you take the Bible seriously, and if you take your walk with Jesus seriously, you're on the opposite end of that, to where this is till death does us part, right? So do us part. Anyways, so all I have to say is like, I would hope that at some point you get some counseling that is this the kind of person that that God would have you make that level of covenant with. Dating, I'm kind of down with what Christian says. If you can be a good influence with somebody, go for it. But I will say this, like, I don't know that that's necessarily an obligation God wants to put on your shoulders. He wants you to share the gospel with everybody, but not at risk of putting yourself in a relationship with them that may ask more than you deserve to have to give them. Does that make sense? I don't know about all these Christians going around cutting people out of their life just because they're not Christians. That doesn't seem right, right? But at the same time, I'm not a firm believer in what I like to call missionary dating, right? At some point in time, again, if you're planning on doing any amount of your life with this person, you want to make sure that their life is headed towards the same target that you are. And if that's not Jesus, for the Christian, that's not an option. I believe that's what Paul speaks very clearly about this. He calls it being unequally yoked. Two cows, well, I know, so like all of y'all are oxen in his mind. Two oxes moving along, pushing along the same path. Well, if one of these cows is going this direction, one of these cows is going the other direction, that's gonna be a big mess. Boy, don't those kinds of marriages turn out to be a big mess. Sophie, do you have something?
Yeah, really quick. What would you do if you have a friend who's in a toxic relationship, but they're like kind of blind to that? Like, what do you think you should do?
I would say, I'm assuming you're saying like that's like one of your best friends, or is it just like an acquaintance?
Yeah, like you have a good friend and you see that their relationship is toxic.
Yeah.
They can't see that.
I think you need to bring it to their like attention that some of the stuff that their significant other or whoever they're dating is wrong, like, because that does happen. Like I was saying, like that love fever thing, it's gonna make you look right past the red flags and stuff. So I think it's your calling as a friend to bring that to their attention, to be like, hey, this stuff is not okay, and you gotta sit down and have a talk about that. That's really all I gotta say about that. So.
Ms. H, you got something?
Well, I was just gonna say, going back to the being unequally yoked, it's not to be a killjoy, that's for your protection. And when you have emotions involved, you know, and you think, oh, but if I just hang on long enough, they'll come to Jesus. I know they will. They won't, or may not. And you don't want to, you know, just, that's for your protection. That's not for the people. And that's
All right. Cool. Thanks, Christian.